Hello and welcome back to All for United's tactical preview, looking ahead to a big clash away to Leicester City this weekend. I've got a massive panel lined up for you, and I will introduce them straight after this.
Click subscribe to get daily Manchester United content from passionate Reds, only on All for United.
We have a bit of a bigger panel than usual for you, but hopefully we keep the quality and the quantity. I'm sure we will. A few new faces as well. Well, welcome to the tactical preview, Ahmed, and welcome Henry, a good friend of the channel. Not seen you in a while, so it's good to have you on as well. Obviously, Abdul and Stu, you know how much of an appreciation there is for you being here as well. But we'll get straight into it. I hope you're all feeling well rested after one of the worst international breaks of all time. Yeah, only the international break could make me excited to watch Manchester United every week, put it that way. But it should be a big game against Leicester. Obviously, two teams who are, by their standards, probably underachieving so far this season. So I suppose something has to give, doesn't it? We'll start with United. I'll come to you, Ahmed, first. We'll look back at the Everton game. Obviously, that's the last indicator of how we played. 1-1 draw. What can we take from that, whether it be positive or negative, into the Leicester game?
Oh, please, you're giving me nightmares again, James. I think from the Everton game, the one thing I'm definitely going to take away from it is our inability to really threaten teams in open play. That game for me, we played very well in the first half, and which gave me hope. I thought we would get a few more than just the one in the first half. Martial scored a great goal. We definitely had a couple more chances. Cavani nods in the header. We could be in a much more comfortable position than we were in the second. But when we look at that second half, all sorts of things went wrong. And it narrows down to something Stu likes talking about a lot of. It's the basics. Playing the ball to a teammate near you, or being able to pass instead of shooting from range, for example. There's those little things that I found to be, it becomes very annoying. And that match will play on my mind for a while, especially when we come up against the bigger teams we're about to embark on in the next month or so. One thing I'm hopeful for that Ollie's probably looked at in this 2 weeks is how he can obviously deal with teams playing a low block and sticking about everyone on the edge of their penalty area. And also, when we do counter, ensuring that players make the right decisions, not only attacking-wise, but in defence. We all know that Fred's not, Hulk Hogan and won't necessarily barge off Demarai Gray at full speed. But the least that we can hope for is that he could have done a lot better in that situation. So on a defensive level as well, I'm also hoping he looks at those transitions when we are going from attack to defense and how quickly we can get back into shape to stop those kinds of attacks from happening more frequently. Other than that, for some strange reason, I'm glad that Fred doesn't play tomorrow, not because I don't like him, but more or less the fact that he's playing for Brazil tonight, which is going to hamper him getting back to England in time. So, I live in hope that tomorrow McTominay, or Saturday McTominay or Nemanja Matic, whoever plays in the hole along with Pogba, does a sterling job.
Oh, mute myself. Sorry.
Hey.
Still, I'll ask you a similar sort of question then. We'll stick with the positives because, as Ahmed said, we could have scored a couple more goals in that first half. Maybe it was probably one of the better performances we've had this season. How do we carry that over into the Leicester game? Because I thought, speaking quite generally, that was a pretty good performance, and we probably deserve to go into the break more than 1-0 up.
Yeah, I can't remember a huge amount about the game because I was away with family and I didn't get to see everything. So I've seen the highlights and I saw the first half where we were dominant. I thought their goal, actually, I thought it was a pretty good goal. I mean, I know people break it down and try to criticise certain elements of the goal, but, sometimes in football, determination outwins skill anyway and outwins formations and things of that nature. So I must admit, I thought their goal was well worked. as I say, you can say what you like about Fred on that occasion. Look, the lads have got to kind of put everything behind them. The Everton game's gone now. I always say once that game's gone, you just park it, you forget about it, and you move on. You always concentrate on your next opponent. And I think that with it being international week, most of the squad being out on internationals is not really helped Ollie again in his preparation for Leicester. So as Ahmed quite rightly says, I think Fred is playing for Brazil tonight. They have chartered, I think Liverpool, City and United have chartered a plane to get the players back as early as possible. So whether or not we'll see Fred play or not, I don't know. I would actually... I would like to probably bring Matic in. I'm not a huge Matic fan, you all know. In fact, I'm not a fan of any of our midfielders. You all know this, so I'm just going over old ground. But I think when you look at, I believe indeed he's not playing. He's either injured or suspended, isn't he? So, but they're very good in their transition, as we all know. And I'm sure we'll talk about in the next phase of the show. But every time we've played them, we've been woefully short in the middle. They've absolutely battered us in the middle. And of course, you've always got a chance with Vardy up top, and you've got a chance with Iheanacho if he plays. But look, if I was the lads, I'd be, looking forward to it again. I wouldn't worry about our injury problems. There's nothing we can do about it. Ollie's got a squad of players for a reason, and whoever comes in, whoever he picks, whoever he starts, you're playing for Manchester United. Always remember that you're pulling on the red shirt of the greatest club on the planet. And you've got to take that onto the pitch, and you've got to become as one with everything, as one with the club, as one with the fans, as one with tactics, if that's what you want to call it. And let's go ahead and win the game. So I would be, if I was in those, if I was Bailly or as Lindelof or whatever, I'd be like, here's my chance now. I've got a real chance of cementing a place. We're missing Varane now for looks like 3 to 4 weeks with groin. I don't know how far Maguire is. From what I've read, at least 2 weeks. Maybe 3. So he's got to, these players have got to come in, and they've got a chance now to really push us on. But look, I know it's early doors, but we need a win. We're just hanging on the coattails of the top 3 at the minute. So we need a win. We need to try and find some kind of form. So I'm looking forward to it. It's not televised though, is it? Which is a bit of a shame. I don't quite understand that, but there you go. But I think we'll be all right.
Certainly hope so. I'll come to you, Abdul. One thing I picked out from the first half, obviously not to mention speaking sort of subjectively, I thought we were pretty free-flowing and what's the word, cohesive. Something that we've probably not seen all that often. And one thing that did stick out to me was the absence of a certain Cristiano Ronaldo. Do you think that had any impact on how we played?
Pretty much, really, because it changed when he came on. And I've said it 100 times probably. Ronaldo will always get you goals, but it's about how the team plays with Ronaldo, right? And I've watched, I don't know if any of you did, but I've watched the Overlap, Gary Neville's show today in the morning. And he was talking about Ronaldo and how Sir Alex accommodated his lack of off-the-ball work, And I don't mean his runs into the penalty box. I mean his off-the-ball work in general. And he was like, he never did it 10, 15 years ago. What makes you think he's going to do it now? So what you do now is try to get workers around him to accommodate for his lack of work off the ball. And unfortunately, we have way too many players that don't work off the ball. And now add on top of it Ronaldo, then your off the ball movement in the front line becomes just too bad, really. And then because you have Bruno Fernandes, who's a very off the ball, hard worker off the ball. He wants to press hard. He wants to get at every chance on every ball, press everybody. And then when you have Cavani with him, that lifts the work rate of the front line up a lot, and both of them guide the players around them. So you'll always see Cavani pointing. You'll always see Bruno Fernandes pointing on where to aim the press, when on the field. Ronaldo doesn't do that. So when Cavani doesn't play, and you have, for example, let's say Anthony Martial and Greenwood, for example, right? You'll have Ronaldo, Martial, and Greenwood. On paper, that looks like a threatening front 3. that should give you 7 goals, right? But in reality is those 3 are isolated because all 3 of them don't work off the ball. So you either have to be an exceptional team on the ball so that you don't lose the ball often, right? Or the other 7 players, including the goalkeeper, have to be work rate wise, they have to be superb. And unfortunately, we don't have that. So you have to find a way to compensate for the lack of work rate you have in the team. So whenever you set up a team, whether the fan base like it or not, the work rate have to be enough to maintain the possession or to be threatening and pressing. So when Ronaldo came on that time against Everton, we lost that work rate, right? And we weren't able to get the ball back as often as we used to, or keep the ball, because we have too many players who want the ball to feet and want to dribble as well. So that also adds to it. So having a Cavani, a Bruno Fernandes, Greenwood has been learning. I don't want to be too critical of the boy. He's still young, but he's been tracking back. He's been trying to do his off the ball work, and he's improving in it a lot since the first season. But you can only have 1 player or maximum 2 players who don't do that work off the ball. If you have the entire front line don't do that, then you're extremely vulnerable on the transition. This is why we look so wide open whenever any team transitions on us. Now also there's other factors, not just the front line, but it's a big problem, and Ali has to solve it. Now, how do you tell a player like Cristiano Ronaldo, I'm sorry, I'm not picking you, you're sitting on the bench because you don't work off the ball? You can't. So it's kind of be like, who can I put around Ronaldo so that I don't have that issue? And for Everton's lineup, I thought the lineup was perfect, even though Ronaldo was benched and people didn't like it. And that's why we looked better, because the team was balanced, or almost balanced. Now, took Cavani off, took Anthony Martial off, which he had injuries, so there was a reason for taking him off. And put Ronaldo on, and we lost all that work rate. We became very open. And obviously, there's a mistake by Fred over there, because the shape was good when they transitioned, and Fred should have done a better job. But it's still other counters were very dangerous, and we were very open.
Yeah, well, just quickly before we move on, I'll bring this question up. Do you think Rashford's return will help in terms of work off the ball? I'll direct that towards you, Abdul, as that's what Brown Knight's done.
Rashford is in the middle, so he's around in the 20th something percentage of defensive and pressing work. So he is not bad. He tries, but what Rashford's add to you is verticality. So runs off the back of the last line, right? So that makes the team that you're facing always keeping Rashford in their mind, because he's that quick. And in one ball over the top, Rashford is in and he can score. So what Rashford adds to you is that doubt to opposition of that they can't press you too high, or they can't press too high, or they can't commit too much, because Rashford will always be looking to receive just one ball over the top and cut through them, really. Other than that, Rashford is a good dribbler. I know people get frustrated with how sometimes he hugs the ball. He wants to pass way too many people, especially against a low block, which is not a smart thing to do. He can take one or two men on and score really at any instant. We've seen it against Newcastle, I guess, where he took last season. He took on the fullbacks and the winger and just cut in and near post and scored a goal out of nothing. So Rashford provides that sense of dangerousness, and that's the word. So the fullbacks can't commit. So that's the dimension he adds. Now off the ball work, the only times where I've seen Rashford really commit to his position off the ball were in the big games. So I was really, really proud of his performance against Manchester City in March last year, because he took out Cancelo. he made Cancelo look redundant in City's team just because of his marking and his shadow. So he canceled all the passing lanes for Cancelo. So that type of work and concentration is always needed. And he did a great job there. I think he's more free when you're facing like an Aston Villa or a Crystal Palace. He doesn't put that worry in his mind. So he's kind of like, I'll just do whatever I want, basically. He doesn't do his like tracking back duties, but he's okay. He's not terrible, but he's not excellent either. So,
Fair enough. I hope that answered your question, Brown Knight. Thank you for the question anyway. I'll come to you, Henry. It's taken nearly 20 minutes, but we've finally got around to you. I know anyone who follows you on Twitter will realise that you're basically the leader of the Cavani fan club. So was his performance and United's performance against Everton justification to start him again against Leicester?
I'm not sure really, and obviously we've got this problem now with the South American players, and it sounds like they're going to be getting a private jet back at silly o'clock in the morning, and it's going to be a sort of race for him and Fred to even be available. I didn't think he was particularly good against Everton. I think other than that, the other couple of performances he had off the bench, Villa and Villarreal, I thought he was very, very impressed with both of those. Obviously Villarreal, the clips went around of him working extremely hard, and as fans we hugely appreciate when players do stuff like that, when they chase dead balls down, when they sort of keep things alive, and that's what Cavani does so well. And last season, obviously, there were no fans in the ground to appreciate that. And this season, he has that now. And I think he realises how well liked he is because of those sort of attributes. So I think, his hard-working nature is excellent. And especially, as Abdul sort of said there, when it comes to Ronaldo, I think it complements Ronaldo very well. And we saw that against Villarreal. I said on Twitter a few days ago, I'd like to see Cavani and Ronaldo start together in one way or another, whether that's sort of Ronaldo sort of starting on the left as sort of an inside forward, not as a pure winger as such, but, working in the half space and cutting inside, quite tight to Cavani, because Cavani will do all the running for him. In that sense, we know how much he presses. So I'd like to see that definitely. Whether Cavani starts or not on Saturday, I'd be very surprised just because of this whole sort of South American thing. I think he's playing tonight, isn't he, or in a few hours' time. I think they've got Brazil, haven't they, or something in a friendly, maybe. So yeah, I'd be surprised, to be honest. But I was just going to say, I did watch the overlap as well, and I did agree with what Gary Neville said. Back in 2008 and whenever else, Ronaldo has always been a player that has had to have hard workers around him because he's never liked to press as much. But that's not really a Ronaldo problem as such. I'd say that's just part of his attribute really, is that he preserves his energy and then uses it late on in games to win you games. I think that's just part of who he is really. I think you do need to surround him with players who are going to work harder, the likes of Cavani, for example. And another player I'd quite like to see start this weekend, Jesse Lingard, who I think's been, in the games that he's had this season, as much criticism I've given him over the past couple of years, he's had a great impact when he's come off the bench. Villarreal, obviously scored the winner against West Ham. I think he could be an option for Saturday, 100%. Starting off, the right hand side, he'll provide the energy. He'll do the running for Ronaldo, 100%. He's an unselfish player. So I just thought I'd throw that in there, really, is that I think he would sort of fit the profile of someone that would be able to do the running for Ronaldo. But, Ollie's got a lot of options. There's a lot of attacking players. Pogba's even now, considered a wide left player a lot of the time. He's another option as well for this game. So I'll be interested to see how Ollie lines it up. But going back to your original question, I'd be surprised if Cavani starts. But if he does, I'd be happy to see that, and I'm sure he'd give his all.
Well, just to follow up on that then, Henry, you mentioned about Lingard and wanting to see him start. Do you not think that sort of tenacity and energy that he provides makes him the perfect super sub? He's quick feet as well to run at tired defences. Do you not think you've got to put that hand in hand?
100%. No, I completely agree. You lose a great substitute if you start him. But in the same vein, you drop someone to the bench who could also make a great impact off the bench. Jadon Sancho off the bench could make a great impact. But I see what you're saying. Lingard's attributes do 100% lend themselves to being great for a super sub, as you say, the pressing, the energy, and that's good when he's been sat on the bench for a while that he can come on and provide that. But yeah, as I say, if Pogba or whoever Sancho drops to the bench, you've got another great sub in that regard as well. But no, I completely see what you're saying. So yeah, it's a tough one for Ollie really. He's got quite a few. You've got a couple of players there who can play left or right in Lingard and Sancho as well. So he's got options really. But yeah, no, I see what you're saying.
Fair enough. Well, listen, we'll move on to another big worry that Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is going to have this weekend, and it's the fact that both his starting centre-backs are going to be unavailable. I think we can work on the assumption that Maguire won't be back. I don't even think he's in full contact training yet, so we'll scratch him off. So Ahmed, I'll ask you this. What's more worrying for you? The fact that Maguire and Varane are injured, or the fact that Lindelof and Bailly are going to start a game together?
I'm not worried about Lindelof and Bailly whatsoever because we've been there with them many, many times. This was our first choice centre-back pairing in the 1920 season, I think, for a large period of time in cup ties. I know Maguire, when he joined the club, played a fair chunk of the games. I don't think he missed many. But when there were days where he wouldn't play, it was Lindelof and Bailly. And any time they played, one or the other had a good game. One day it was Bailly, one day it was Lindelof. I vividly remember last season against Aston Villa when we scraped a 2-1 win at Old Trafford early on in the season. I remember Bailly's last-minute tackle. Lindelof played a blinder. And that, for me, more or less gave me faith in both of them playing. Of course, we're going to miss Varane and Maguire. I was literally crossing my toes and my fingers on Sunday in that Nations League final that Varane would come through without a scratch, but sadly that wasn't the case. And we are here today having to now, once again, for what feels like the upteenth time, talk about having an Eric Bailly and Victor Lindelof partnership. I think they know each other enough by now to be able to understand the task that is in front of them. They have experience playing against Leicester. They played in that 2-2 draw last season. Lindelof played at right back on that day, however, when Wan-Bissaka was injured, and we had obviously sent out Dalot on loan. Lindelof did well. He has knowledge of who he's coming up against in Harvey Barnes. At times, a very chaotic midfielder, I would say. He causes a few problems. He is very quick. He's decisive in games as well, given the opportunity. Eric Bailly is Eric Bailly. There's never a day when we talk about him where it's always a bit of a lottery as to whether he will get a red card in this game or whether he comes through with not only a clean sheet but with every single tackle as perfect as a perfect exam. He can always surprise you, but he can always frustrate you. So with Eric, you've got to be prepared to expect what he can do to more or less be a positive and a negative. Whether he lunges for a tackle, whether he goes for a header, you just got to hope it comes off with them. But I have faith in them. Lindelof is a rejuvenated defender. I think he likes the competition. He's thrived on the fact that two players are now better than him in terms of just generally being world-class defenders and will take the first spots in the team without a doubt when fit. When the opportunity comes for him, though, to play, he's got to take it. And having seen West Ham this season, he played well despite losing. He played well. He still has, I think, the ability to bring the ball out from the back, find a midfielder. When Rashford comes back into the team and he plays, we've seen many times those quarterback passes from Lindelof. They're going to be key later at points in this season. But on Saturday, I just hope that he plays well and that Eric Bailly just keeps a lid on certain things. But I am sad. It's sad that we don't have Maguire or Varane, but we just got to be patient and hope that those two come good on Saturday and we head into the Atalanta game with some hope that they are able to retain some kind of understanding for what they're going to be getting themselves in for.
Fair enough. I can't argue with that. I'll come to you then, Stu, on a similar sort of subject then. Is there not reason to be a little bit sort of excited for the Bailly and Lindelof partnership? Because in my mind, on paper, they sort of counteract each other very well. I think one person's strength is another person's weakness. So, for example, Lindelof lacks sort of the physicality and the speed, really, and we've seen that when he's next to Maguire, but that's Bailly's speciality, and Bailly's very, very reckless. And Lindelof got his nickname the Iceman for his calm and coolness at the back. So, in essence, if we can really get them going, could this be a very good defensive partnership, do you think?
Yeah, I don't mind Lindelof and Bailly at all, actually. I'm not really sure Varane and Maguire have taken off anyway, as much as most people do. I mean, if you say something against Varane at the minute, you get vilified, which is a bit strange, really, because, if people take time to adapt into the Premier League, and I think he's taking time to adapt into the Premier League. He's also taking time to adapt to playing alongside Maguire. with regards to Bailly and Lindelof, they do complement each other quite well. I speak about it all the time about you need two types of different centre halves, kind of the polar opposites, really. And I think Lindelof's probably got a good chance to potentially plays way back into the starting 11. I kind of get the feeling that Solskjaer doesn't want to drop Lindelof anyway, or didn't want to drop Lindelof anyway. But obviously, when Varane came, he kind of had no choice. What I like about Lindelof is he is quite calm. I was always quite a calm defender, and I think you need to have that. You need to, Lindelof. He's got a pass. He can put his foot on the ball. He can play it out from the back if he chooses to. He just doesn't choose to do that. He used to let Maguire do that, but Lindelof's got the attributes to do that. And don't forget, for Sweden on occasions he plays right back, so he is pretty competent on the football. When you've got somebody like Bailly alongside you who's willing to throw his head in everywhere, put a tackle in at any time, reckless or not, you've got to have that type of person alongside you. You've got to have that type of player that's willing to do absolutely everything, stick his head in where it matters. Phil Jones was one of those players. People laugh at Phil Jones and they can laugh at him. When you look at his attributes as a player, he was solid. He wasn't afraid of anything. Bailly's not afraid of anything. We've had numerous players along, throughout the club's history of players, certainly centre halves that aren't afraid to get stuck in. And I think that's the kind of partnership you get with Lindelof and Bailly, but you don't get with Varane and Maguire just at the moment. And so I haven't got a problem. Look, the players in that dressing room, they just get on with it. They won't care who's behind them as long as they've got two centre halves and they've got a goalkeeper behind them. They've got two right backs. They won't care who it is because you have to believe in it. When you're in a squad of players, you've got to believe in everybody's ability. And quite clearly, these guys have got ability. I think the issue is that they make the odd one or two mistake, and our fan base, they just jump on everything. But Varane's made 2 or 3 errors this season, and yeah, he's a god. It just, people are going to start looking at players, what they can offer and what they can't offer. And look, Vardy's quick. I think when you look at it tomorrow, I don't think Vardy will be relishing playing against. Saturday. I don't think Vardy will be relishing playing against Bailly. I'm not so sure Iheanacho would. So I'm not too bothered. I think we're seeing a different De Gea at the minute. He's not as commanding as Henderson, but he's kind of getting there. So it is one of those where you've got to get on with it. You can't worry about it. The fan base can't worry about it, and just see what happens.
Certainly, completely agree. Well, I'll come to you, Abdul. I think we've the last 2 speakers have obviously said about the strengths of this partnership. Are there any, in your mind, underlying weaknesses that Leicester can exploit, given how good they can be going forward?
No, not really, especially against Leicester, because Leicester is not, Jamie Vardy and Harvey Barnes and Ayuso Perez, all these players are not really physical players. They're players that like to exploit the channels and run at you. And Bailly and Lindelof are really good at that. They're very their strength is reading the game, really. Bailly is a bit erratic and crazy, but he's fairly good with people who are even early dominant, if any of them is early dominant, but none of them are. And Lindelof has really performed very well against Vardy every time he came up against him, really. So against Leicester, I wouldn't worry too much about their physicality issues, which Bailly doesn't really have, but Lindelof does. But that's not the worry, really. I mean, it's almost annoying that I have to say this again, but Manchester United's problems this summer wasn't a center back; it was a center defensive midfielder. And I have to say this for the 1,000 times. Yes, Varane is a great complement to Maguire, and his speed and his aerial presence is good, and it will provide that one extra advantage. But that wasn't the problem, and you've all seen it this season. We're still very open, and we're very open because we're not balanced in midfield. We're very open, but because our midfield can't compensate for the lack of work rate from the entire team. So that's my worry. My worry is organization. My worry is defensive transitions. And if that's not good, Leicester can just transition on us as easy as that. And it doesn't matter whether you have Maguire or Varane or Bailly or Lindelof, and they will score. That's the two center backs are not the problem. And I don't know why people think it's the center back.
Absolutely agree about transition, Abdul. Totally agree. Leicester is brilliant at the quick transition turnaround and at you.
Exactly, and they're better at it than Everton as well. So if Everton was able to transition easily and on us, you can bet your money on it that Leicester can. So it's either that they will try to keep the ball away from us because they try to play possession-based football under Rodgers, and we're the ones who are going to transition on them, or the opposite. And in the case of the opposite, I don't trust us. In case of that, we're having to defend transitions. I don't trust Manchester United. In case of we're the ones who don't have the ball and we're in our shape, we don't have to move from it that much. Okay, we can defend well. So no, I'm not. I don't have any worries when it comes to center backs. I have worries when it comes to midfield, and that's my greatest issue coming into that tough run against Liverpool, City, and all of them.
I think the most crazy thing about this is we've all spotted this months and months ago that the midfield is the weakest area, and yet it's the one area we didn't improve on in the summer. But that's just a topic for another day. But Henry, I'll come to you last on this partnership. Then I'll focus specifically on Eric Bailly, because I think he's now the fourth choice centre back. Bearing in mind he signed a new contract in April, I want to say, maybe March. Even with that new contract, does this feel like this little run of games he's about to get is his last chance in a United shirt?
Yeah, 100%. To be honest, I'm surprised that he's got another chance. I was baffled at the contract in the first place, if I'm completely honest. On his day, Eric Bailly is a top defender, traditional defender, aggressive. He's brilliant at getting the ball off people. He's decent in the air. He is a good centre back on his day. The only problem with him is, as we know, first of all, he's massively erratic at times. He steps up too high. He flies into a challenge that he shouldn't go for. Leaves gaps, and he has that in him. He has that streak in him. We all know that, and that's one of the attributes we think about when we think about Eric Bailly. And obviously, the second thing behind that was the terrible injury record he's had since he's been at the club. So I was surprised at the contract in the first place. Yeah, if he hasn't already had his last chance, definitely this is it now. I think he will always be a squad player now at United anyway. I'd be very surprised if he somehow worked his way back into a consistent starting role. I think, that ship sailed really. But yeah, no, you know what? I'm happy with him playing against Leicester, to be honest. I think he is a good match for Jamie Vardy. Someone who's going to go toe-to-toe with Jamie Vardy, and he'll be able to deal with him in that manner. He's played against him a few times before. So he'll be fine in that regard. It's just that worry. Will he fly into that challenge? Will he create that gap, leave that space and cause us a problem? But yeah, I think, the lads made some great points there. I think the main thing is that these two have played together, which is a massive thing for two sort of backup halves at this point to have played together consistently. That's usually the problem you have with squad players when you bring them in, is that they haven't played, with their partners, especially with centre backs. So it's a positive that those two have played together consistently. Obviously, back in 2017, 18, I think they played together, quite a few times back then. Seems like ages ago now, back in the Jose era, but they've played together. They know each other well, and hopefully they should have enough really to be able to stop Leicester's attacks really. So we'll see. Obviously, both of them have got their moments in them where they can provide a dodgy back pass or a red card challenge or something like that. So we'll see. It could go either way really, but yeah, as the boys have said, really, I'm not too worried. I think, yeah, we should be okay, really.
Certainly hope so. I certainly do. Final point on the United lineup. Then we'll talk about the attack, because there's an outside chance that, well, it's more than an outside chance by the sounds of it, that Marcus Rashford could return. I'll come to you first, Ahmed. One, is it worth risking him? Well, that'll be my main question, I suppose. Is it worth risking him this early back from injury? Is his impact on the team worth that risk, do you think?
If it means we put Sancho out back on the right-hand side, then yes. It is obviously a detriment to Mason Greenwood, who's played very well at the start of this season. And he's probably, if Rashford hadn't been now injured longer, not wishing that to be the case from here on out, of course, but had it be the case that he was out for longer than just the period he's been out for so far, I would more or less give Greenwood that role for the rest of the season and give Sancho the role on the left-hand side. My feeling is with Rashford, though, is what we're getting back now is nigh on one of the best players the Premier League has ever seen. And this boy's only 23 and now fully fit. We waited so long to see a fully fit Rashford in our team. And what he'll bring, as I mentioned earlier about the quarterback passes from Lindelof, what he brings is not only the sheer pace and the ability to simply beat a man all ends up, is that I don't know why, but people don't think that he doesn't press. He pressed a lot in the 1920 season when Oli asked his team to do more of that from the front pressing because they were so devoid of that confidence to go and suppress a defense. Sometimes mistakes came from that. We scored plenty of goals, profiting from being so high up the pitch. He is one of the main orchestrators for that, along with Bruno Fernandes. And if he has been told now in this time when he's recovered, please do that more often because Ronaldo doesn't do it as much and I don't expect him to. Same would apply with Sancho, but Sancho's still learning the trade at Old Trafford. I don't know how much more he needs to learn there before we can start questioning things about his defensive output. But Rashford brings goals, he brings confidence, he brings an air of, what I like to say, inevitability to a game. Because you then have another match winner on the team. You have somebody who will, if Ronaldo can't do it, and we know he always can, if Ronaldo can't do it, then Greenwood can. If Greenwood can't do it, Cavani can. If Cavani can't do it, it's Bruno. Rashford becomes another match-winning option for us. Whether he plays this weekend for me, though, is of concern. I'd have thought we would have given him minutes in the Atalanta game instead of the Leicester match. But I'm not Oli, so I don't decide that. If you want my opinion, I think he gets 20 minutes at best against Leicester. That's as far as I'll go. And if he doesn't, then he gets more against Atalanta on Wednesday night. So we'll see with Rashford. But right now, I'm optimistic. I'm hopeful he comes back stronger, fitter, and more importantly, hungry to help United get up the league.
Yeah, I think you speak for every United fan when you say that. But Stu, I'll come to you. I'll ask you a similar sort of question. Do you want to see Marcus Rashford start? And if so, whose place in that front line does he take?
No, I'm with Ahmed. We bench him. We start him on the bench. If you are going to start him, then conventional wisdom would suggest he probably takes Sancho out of the equation because I think at the moment, whatever my thoughts are on Greenwood in playing, in his this number 9 position, out on the left, out on the right, whichever, I think he's kind of warrants his starting berth. So I think it'd be quite unfair to remove Greenwood out of the side. However, I would say one thing: when you're spending 73 million quid on a footballer, you've got to give him minutes, and you've got to give him minutes, a lot of minutes, and he's starting to slowly but surely find his feet, Sancho. And at the moment, we don't necessarily, this is going to sound rather strange, but we don't necessarily need Rashford, to come in and disrupt things. So I think we've got, for the first time in a while, when you consider we've been playing him injured for 10 months, for the first time in a while, we're actually in a position where we don't need to rush any forwards back because we've got plenty of options up there. And that's what I would do with Rashford, because we're going to need him for the business end of the season. From January onwards, really going to need him firing. And so I'm kind of with Ahmed. I would give him perhaps minutes against Atalanta. I would give him minutes against Leicester, but I'm not necessarily sure I would start him. But I would start Sancho, because you've got to give this kid a chance. You've got to give this kid an opportunity to find his feet. Now, look, I watched the boring England match against Andorra, and it's only Andorra. But I thought he started to show glimpses over the last 2 games of his quick feet. And if he can just find his directness again and start running at players, then, maybe there's an opportunity to play Sancho and Rashford and move Greenwood, into the middle, which I don't want, because I think it's way too early. But there is these opportunities where we can do a variety of things up front. without a worry about if one or two get injured, because we've got enough cover up there. So for me, I know people are saying Rashford to start. For me, well, each to their own, but I'm with Ahmed, bench.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, Abdul, I wanted to ask you a little bit of a different question because I wanted some, I want to say professional clarification, but you know what I mean on this. You basically are at this point. I think the common opinion that Sancho is better on the right is one that I'm not sure whether I agree with, because I think with the system that we play and with the system that almost every big team plays now, with the overlapping wingers, it's almost impossible to have someone on their natural side as a winger. Is it not? Is it a worry that when Rashford comes back in, Sancho will get shifted out onto that right, and then him and Wan-Bissaka are just going to be trying to exploit the same bits of space?
It depends on what you're trying to get out of them, though, because Sancho is more of a creator when he's on the right hand side than he is of a shooter or a scorer. And if you play him on the left, then you're technically looking more for Sancho to shoot and try to get goals for himself. He played quite a lot on the left hand side for Dortmund. And this is where he got the majority of his goals. That doesn't mean that he doesn't score from the right. He does, but it was that mainly from the left-hand side. But what he does from the right-hand side is he creates for his teammates mostly. And if you really noticed how Rashford played for us last season, whenever he got shoved to the right-hand side and Pogba got put on the left, we weren't looking for Rashford to score. We were looking for Rashford to create. And that's exactly what Rashford was doing. He got most of his assists coming off the right. You know? So, and people will go to, I don't know, transfer market and tell you, oh, no, he was in the left position in the lineup. No, he wasn't. He was, during that period when he was coming off the right during the match, he provided the assist, even though in the initial lineup, he was on the left-hand side, right? So, and why is that? Because of his preferred foot, you know, on the right, on his right foot, he can't cut in and shoot from the right-hand side. Right, so he provides these, you know, crosses or balls over the top for people to run onto, and like for example, the assist he gave to Pogba against Burnley, the assist he gave to Pogba against West Ham last season. So that's exactly the type of role we want Sancho for, and Sancho is better at it than Rashford, in terms of like the creation and finding space and keeping the ball and dribbling through it from the right-hand side. And that's why we bought Sancho, really, to add threat from the right-hand side. I mean, one of the reasons we lost to Villarreal in the Europa League final is that Villarreal didn't care about our right-hand side. They clamped the left-hand side and like, you know, break us if you can, you know? And we couldn't. It's because they really didn't care about Aaron Wan-Bissaka, and Greenwood was shifting centrally anyway, you know. So I don't get the idea of we're wasting him if we're playing him on the left, or we're wasting him if we don't playing him, or if we played him on the right. He can do both jobs. It just depends on what all you wants him to do on the day, right? So if you're encouraged to cut in, dribble, and shoot, then off the left is good. You know, if you're encouraged to find space and find players, then off the right is good as well.
I think he needs to come in from the left, Abdul. I think he needs a couple of goals. You know, and I think coming in because
he's a slow starter anyway. So if you watched all his 3 seasons at Dortmund,
he was terrible.
He started slowly. At the first. I remember the second season, he didn't start until winter. And people were saying he was a one-season wonder and he boiled off and he's not going to put up the same numbers anymore.
What I'd like to see him do is
blew up in January.
Yeah, I'd like to see him attack the diagonal because he's brilliant at doing that. He's good at getting round to the back.
Again, as we were talking earlier, it depends on the combination that you want. How are you going to balance the front three? It's really vital. Like, in my mind, every time I think of the forward line for United, I know people hate it, I can't make a line that's good enough with the Ronaldo in it. You know? And I know people will hate me. People will hate me for it, but it's just that I can't make a line that will work hard enough in your defensive phase and your defensive transitions with Ronaldo in it. Okay, we get it. Ronaldo doesn't do it. Let's find a solution for people around him, right? So I'm trying to think of all the combinations that we can do, and it's just like, okay, let's put Anthony Martial. But Anthony Martial does it, haphazardly. Okay, let's put Rashford. Rashford is good at pressing, but he doesn't track back that much either. Then, okay, let's put Greenwood. Then all our players are like that. Our forward line is like that. So you add on top of it Ronaldo, it becomes all of them. So that's why Cavani is so crucial. That's why I'm dying for Cavani to be playing every single match if possible, because it gives you a Cavani and Bruno Fernandes. So at least you have 2 of the 4 in the front doing work rate, doing your off-ball work. But back to the point, it depends on who plays with Sancho. If you're going to play someone who's going to get in his way, then Sancho becomes less effective. Like I remember the first 2 matches, him and Cristiano Ronaldo were getting into each other's way because Ronaldo likes to, drift a little bit to the left. He was on the left as well. Now that will improve with the more they play together. They'll understand each other more. Like one will know when to move out when the other moves into the space that he likes. But who becomes the right-hand side? Also a big question if you put Sancho on the left. So it's not a problem if he plays on the left, basically.
I like him out there, I do. But you're right about Cavani, because I would have Cavani in as well. The simple reason of Sancho's ability to create.
Yeah.
Cavani will feed off that all day long and eat them up all day
long. And Ronaldo too. Like if you play Sancho on the left and Sancho creates for Ronaldo will benefit a lot from it. But then it becomes the problem: who's on the left and is he doing enough work? If Ronaldo's in the center. So this is the issue with the whole thing. How do you balance all those front 3 is a problem that I don't know how Ollie's going to solve.
Ask the Twitter coaches. They'll tell you. All the Twitter coaches will tell you how to balance the front 3. They'll write a thread on it for you. Don't you
They'll
worry.
have their UEFA Twitter badges.
Of course they do.
They're hiding from us. Touching on what Abdel said very quickly, I'd agree on the Cavani thing. I love the guy because when he came into the club last season, around about this time last year, we all cried foul, thinking, we brought in a big money player for free, just wasting wages on somebody who could have been Jadon Sancho. But what I think we hadn't realised at the time was what we were bringing in was not only a world-class goal scorer, but somebody who will actually make an effort to stress out a defence. Defenders played against United in that previous season and were not overly concerned by us pressing them most of the time. Whenever we did, it would be the rare occasion where they would fluff their lines or make a mistake. With Cavani, it became an additional threat because he does that, harrying the goalkeeper, the centre-backs, endless running on end for 90 minutes or for however long he could play. Adding that with his goals, and that sort of like boosted the team morale a bit more. And I think what epitomized it for me was his performance against Spurs. After I think he was directing Greenwood most of the time on how to play the ball in, because I don't like you playing this ball. I can't reach it. I want you to lift it for me because then I can attack it. He gives advice to teammates, whether they're better than him or not. He will always be a wise head on calm shoulders, and it's invaluable having somebody in a team that will sacrifice their own interests for the good of everybody else. I think that's what Bruno was looking for in the team when he started. It felt like, it felt a bit annoying seeing him just doing the pressing work on his own with nobody else helping him initially. When Cavani comes in, you see now 2 people doing it. Hopefully it becomes a positive influence around the whole team. And
who is helping him? Someone we sold to Leeds. Someone who looked a lot better every time he played, even though
I miss him so much,
contributing much forward.
Dan James
because he looked good in shape.
Yeah, Dan James looks so good in a press as well. It's a shame that we've moved him on, but what happens? What happens? Something happens. I accept that we've moved him on because we had to, open up the wage bill.
No, it makes sense.
Such a
He had
good
no
player.
place now.
Yeah, he had no place in the team. He was so harsh on it, but he did such a good job. He was such a willing and happy presser. He loved playing for United and would do anything in the team, regardless of whether he was attacking. He'd even fill in at wing back, if anything. And I'm sure if we'd still had him now, along with Cavani, whenever we rotate the team, he'd have been a very important player. But look, we're lucky to have Cavani, really. After a year, we've waited a little longer than we should have for him to make his debut, but he's had a very good first year, and I'm hoping that the more we see him this season, especially with moments like the ones against Villarreal, will hopefully parallel us up the league table faster than I want us to.
Yeah, I think this whole issue, I know it's hard to change habits, but this whole issue gets solved if, for example, Ollie or the coaches over there really beat it down in their heads that they need to work off the ball, especially those three: Greenwood, Sancho, and Marcus Rashford. If these three just up their work a little bit by 10%, 15% off the ball, we'll look a much more cohesive unit than we look right now. Obviously, there is quality in the middle where if it improves, it even lifts us up more. But if the shape at least looks good when we get transitioned on, then that takes 50% of the risks.
Yeah.
But I just hope that they kind of you need to do your work off the ball.
Yeah.
So you're getting
Whip
dropped.
it into them. Tell them every day. Press. Do not give them a second on the ball.
They shouldn't need telling, Ahmed. Though this is honestly, they shouldn't need telling. They should fucking know.
It's instinct. That's why I started it by saying I don't know how much can you change of someone's habit, this is unfortunately this is something that gets taught at the very young age. Not right now. These are elite level footballers with tendencies that they have grown with, right? But for example, I'll give you an example. I was studying lately. Raheem Sterling, when he moved from Liverpool to Manchester City, he had the knack of cutting in and not staying wide, right? And he will always run into traffic just like Rashford and not be able to score. And people would get frustrated at him because of it. Until when he worked with Guardiola, what I heard was Guardiola drew a line for him. I told him, I don't want you to cross this line. Every time you receive the ball, you stay wide, because Guardiola likes his wingers wide, right? And every time Raheem Sterling would cross this line, he would repeat it again. Until he didn't cut off his habit completely, but it shifted. And he knew that he needed to stay wide every time the ball is still being recycled or not with them or not on his side, and that improved him. You have to, this is a habit that Raheem didn't have when growing up, but you have to beat it into them, kind of to just try to change it a little bit, try as much as you can. So tracking back for attacking players, it's not really the biggest thing that they get taught and under 6s, under 8s, under 12, under 14s, but they need to. And now, with build-up play, with pressing and stuff becoming the thing that big teams do, under 8s, under 6s, they're learning organized pressing. They're learning, tracking back. They're learning, especially the attackers, because the attackers are not thinking that way. So that's why I'm saying they have to do something about it. They can't just leave them playing on habits 100% of the time. They have to learn to track back. They have to learn to do their work off the ball. As much as it does not get noticed, it's important for the team as a whole.
It's huge.
It's huge.
Yeah, fair enough. Well, just to round us off, I'll come to you, Henry, the last person we spoke to about this. I'll flip it back to the Rashford and Sancho conversation, because the only person that's not been mentioned yet is Mason Greenwood. And I wanted to get your opinions on, with all this attacking talent that we'll have when Rashford comes back, it's easy to forget Martial as well and how good he can be when he decides to be. How do we make sure all of these front line are constantly rotated and kept happy, while also making sure that Greenwood's immense progress as a player isn't stagnated?
Yeah, I think this is the right thing for Greenwood, though. Really, is giving him these runs of games, so perhaps a bit of a break, then bringing him back in. I think that's probably the best way to do it for him. Obviously, he had an unbelievable start to the season. I think he scored in all three of the first three games, and big goals in those games as well. Obviously, the goal that took us ahead against Leeds, and then the winner at Wolves, and the goal that got us a point at Southampton as well. So those were huge goals. He started brilliantly, and obviously that was great to see because the season before, obviously, he didn't start very well, and there was a lot of talk about. There was a lot of stuff around the England stuff and the Iceland, incident with him and Foden, and he got the brunt of that really, and there was a bit of worry about that. And he seemed to shape that off really well towards the back end of last season. Scored against Spurs and some other big goals, and obviously he started this season really well. And he's just had a bit of a dry patch now. I wouldn't say it's anything too much to worry about really. He's, as you say, still incredibly young. I don't think he's been terrible all round either. I still think he's been part of the game. He's not been a complete passenger to the games he's played in. I think he's been okay linking up with everyone else, etc. So, yeah, I think, this is probably a game I wouldn't play him in, to be honest. As we've already, massively alluded to, we need that energy, we need that pressing. Greenwood's not, massively accustomed to doing so. When you've got Ronaldo, as we've said, we need to surround him with those sort of workhorses, especially in these sort of away games against Leicester, a team with a good amount of energy as well. So I'd say this is a game perhaps not for him, but that's fine. I think that's how it works when you've got, when you're a youngster at a top club like this, you can't expect to start every game, especially when, you're bringing in these big names such as Sancho, etc. He's got to be handled with care. And I think Ollie's handled him in a very good way, to be honest, Greenwood, whether that's protecting him with regards to the England incident and then keeping him away from England now, agreeing with Southgate not to perhaps play him. I think that's what it seems like it's been agreed anyway. So I think they've handled Greenwood very well. And I think there's no harm in him not playing football matches like this. So, yeah, I wouldn't play him on Saturday, and I think there's no harm in that at all. It's just, for me, this isn't a game for him, and especially with his form considered as well, I'd say, it's probably best if he doesn't play this one or doesn't start this one. That's not to say, as we've already alluded to, a lot of players, come off the bench and make a huge impact, and all he needs is one chance and he'll bag. So, yeah, I think he'll probably be on the bench for Saturday, I'd imagine.
It's completely fair. Yeah, I think I don't really have anything to add to that. We are getting close to the hour now, so I'll open the floor up if anyone has any sort of closing statements that they wanted to make but haven't been able to yet. If not, we'll call it a day.
Very briefly, but just results-based kind of nonsense. Obviously, we've lost the last two to Leicester, but mitigating circumstances were the reasons why we were beaten. I'd say this time around we have a full-strength side. We don't have the burden of worrying about a game 2 days later this time around. And it's not the quarterfinals of the FA Cup just yet. But reflecting on those 2 games last season, a dramatic improvement will need to be made on the results from last year. With the team we should have on Saturday, I think it's more than capable of beating Leicester. I'm quite sure Leicester will have one eye on the Europa League because they've got a tough trip to Russia on Wednesday night. So life for them isn't going to get much easier, and they have to kind of pick up points. So I wouldn't be surprised if Brendan Rodgers adjusts his team to have one eye on that game. So it will open up a chance for United to hopefully get the job done, and that's the most important thing, get that job done. And then should it be comfortable, get rid of a couple of players to rest them for Wednesday. So
same for us, by the way. Atalanta are not an easy team. People Absolutely. Are discrediting them, and I can see it online. It's like they're thinking it's Crystal Palace or something.
No, they are not a Crystal Palace team, Abdul. Not at all. Yeah. They are free scoring. This is a side that have top 4 2 seasons in a row. Yeah. They have goal scorers all over the pitch. There's no guarantees in this game. And in Champions League, nothing is guaranteed. So you've got to be prepared for the unexpected. They will come with the one mentality that they have done this before, where they've been to Anfield on an away Champions League trip. Not many teams do that and beat them. So if you can do that to Liverpool, more or less the same team will probably do that to Manchester United if we're on an off day. And they will be preparing for that through their means on Saturday and or Sunday, whenever they play. We'll have a look at it soon. But I would not take Atalanta lightly because that is a game which is pivotal to whether we get out of the group or not. So can't let those ones slip. Not this year.
Absolutely. Well, I'll quickly make Brown Knight happy. We'll go through like a combined starting 11. I won't go around all of you. I think we can assume the back 5, including De Gea, is pretty set, so we won't go over that. But midfield, I want to gauge your guys' thoughts on it because it's likely we're going to be without Fred, which means we might not see McTominay. So in the comments as well, there's been a lot of McTominay Pogba talk, not McTominay, sorry, Matic Pogba talk. Does anyone have anything like? Does anyone have any thoughts on that? Whether that's what you go for? Would you make any changes to that, or what?
I would go for the same thing as well. Matic.
Yeah, so would I. I think that's going to be it.
Safe bet. Safe bet.
Universal Matic and Pogba. Then there's 2 more players locked in. This front 3, well, the 3 in front of them, sorry, excluding the striker. Collectively, we all said sort of Rashford shouldn't really be starting. So are we counting him out of our starting lineups?
Yeah. He's not in for me.
On the left, then, do we go Sancho or Martial?
I'll play Sancho.
If Martial's fit, because he didn't play in the Nations League, I would play Martial and then put Sancho on the right, rest Greenwood. But if not, then as Stu suggested, play Sancho left, Greenwood right, Ronaldo through the middle.
I think with Martial, you could still stick him on the right anyway. You put Martial, play him out on the right. But I would start Sancho on the left, yeah.
Yeah, he'd hate that though, but it is what it is.
Well, you play for Man United.
Be prepared for anything.
Life anyway.
Get on with it.
Yeah.
In that
For me, I would do a Martial, Bruno, Sancho as a front 3 with Greenwood in the middle. He does well against Leicester.
Yeah,
that's a big
shout.
shout.
He loves scoring against them.
So I think that midfield 3 of Martial, Bruno, and Sancho is probably what I'd go for. But there's a debate for you guys then: Greenwood or Ronaldo up front, assuming Cavani won't be back in time to play.
Yeah, it should be. They played yesterday, right? So
Cavani's playing against Brazil tonight with Fred.
Tonight,
No, I'm talking about Cristiano.
Ronaldo plays.
Ronaldo will be fine. He'll start Ronaldo. Won't he? He will. He'll start.
Yeah, I know. I'm just putting my suggestion.
Yeah, well, I would play. I would play Bruno slightly deeper. Anyway, I won't put him up in the front 3. I don't like him up there. I much prefer him to play more deeper floating role with a bigger circumference, because he comes back and he chases. When he doesn't get the ball, he comes back and he chases. He gets frustrated. So I like to see him drop 20 yards deeper occasionally. But
just wanted to touch on Ugly Bears one. Pogba and Bruno as the pivot with Donny van der Beek in the 10. What that does is upset the midfield balance. Pogba hates sitting deep. He will do it because more or less no one else in the team can either be injured, we have injuries, or no one else in the team could do it. But Pogba hates sitting deep. He wants to get forward. He wants to be in and around the edge of the penalty area like Bruno does. Bruno is a willing player. He'll play anywhere. I'm sure he'd be happy to sit deep, but I don't think a lot of us fans would like to see the entire six tip men attack going all the way up to the edge of the opposition penalty area, leaving this massive gap between midfield and defence for Leicester to attack into.
Remember what happened in the Villarreal game? That's a carbon copy of that, but on a worse scale.
Yeah, we can't have that. As much as I appreciate
completely open.
Yeah, I don't want to see that gap in the midfield, between the midfield and the defence. I can't. If we see that gap, I think Harvey Barnes or whoever plays on the right hand side and through the middle, Maddison, Tielemans, they're going to enjoy that space. They'll love it. Balls over the top, balls through our defence. It's a field day for them. So we cannot have that kind of team playing. So I'd say let's play it safe with the Matic and Pogba pivot, please.
It's not even played it safe. I really can't get why people can't get their head around this, especially social media. You need to have a balanced team. There's nothing called just put all your attackers on and you're going to score all the goals in the world. Like, how can they not? Like, this idea of, he plays McFred because he's clueless. I'm like,
this is why
there is a perfect reason, valid reason why McFred plays.
This is why.
You know? Like, I just can't get how 3 years in they can't get their head around why Fred and McTominay play, because we don't have a balanced midfield, and they balance the midfield. Whether they have deficiencies or not, they do. We don't like it, but it's what we have. You know, I just can't.
Someone's got to protect the defense. It's the graveyard job. Someone's got to do it. You're not got to like it, but someone's got to do it. And if you don't do it, well, I don't want to look at our goals against at the end of the season. Thank you.
Dear me. Well, let's hope that's not the pivot on Saturday. Let's hope we get a defensive midfielder in there at least, and let's hope we get 3 points. And on that note, I'll call a day. I'll call it a day. Sorry. So massive thank you to you guys for joining me. I hope you've enjoyed the show as much as I have. The same goes to the people in the comments and to the viewers as well. Thank you for getting involved and making it such a good show. But yeah, I think we've got a video tomorrow. I think Mark's covering for me on Timeline Talk, so stay tuned for that. But without any further ado, I'll see you next time.